for science!
What is going on, everybody? This is an impromptu Star Wars spoiler discussion. We're going to talk about the movie. We're going to talk about The Last Jedi. Just came out about a week ago. My name is Willie Dills. That's Chad. I'll put your name up when the YouTube video happens. But Chad K21 on Twitter, right? And
hi, everybody.
We do the Torture Cast podcast together, the podcast about the San Francisco Giants. And we've hung out many, many times. When I used to live in the Bay Area, we used to get to go to games and stuff together. There's my dog coming to hang out because he wants to talk about I don't know, Kylo Ren or something, or maybe he wants to talk about the new cute little buzz balls that fly and stuff.
Little porgs, yeah.
Yeah, the porgs, yes. So basically, we're just gonna kind of go through impromptu, just kind of discussion of the film. But this has been an interesting Star Wars movie because it has been incredibly polarizing, right? Like, people either think it's the dumbest Star Wars I've ever seen. It ruined franchise. By the way, for people who were saying that, the franchise was already ruined when I was a teenager when the prequels came out. So,
yeah,
I don't think you can like re-ruin it. To be completely frank, but I don't know. I want to kind of address all the things that people are complaining about, and then also just kind of talk about like how we kind of feel about those things. Do we feel like there were actually problems? And then we'll talk about the things we like too. I don't want to get bogged down in all that, but it is kind of insane and intense what's going on the internet. So, like, just first of all, like, do you like always been a Star Wars fan? I know you're about the same age as me, so we kind of grew up with the original trilogy being a thing.
Yeah. No, I was 4 when Star Wars came out in 1977, and I do have a very faint recollection of going to the theater. The big, first memory for Star Wars for me was seeing Empire Strikes Back. In the theaters, opening night with my parents, because I was 7 at the time.
Yeah, like that was like
Imperial
old
Cruiser
enough to
come over
remember
the whole
it.
thing.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. And the second, the prequels, I lined up for those, and once I saw Jar Jar Binks, that was it. I was done. And I guess the only thing we're going to dive into this, I know, but I guess because there is kind of a backlash with some hardcore fans. I wouldn't consider myself a hardcore fan, but a serious Star Wars fan.
Like, do you ever read the books?
Yeah, I've read a few, but not like I said, you're hardcore Star Wars fan. So, sure. I mean, look, we do baseball podcasts together, so I can understand someone may look at me and go, like I look at someone who doesn't follow baseball pretty religiously and go, you don't really know what you're talking about. But this is a form of entertainment, and everyone has their own subjective lens that they're going to look through. Everybody has their own experience as a fan, and my experience is this is just for fun. It's an art form. I had a lot of critiques of the film, but I loved it. I thought it was good. I thought it was very good. And
so when I first saw it, I had a lot of problems with it. And I remember actually as I was sitting in the theater at the beginning, I was like, oh no, am I not liking the new Star Wars movie? Like, oh no, like it was like kind of a sense of dread because I'm kind of like you. I'm not crazy hardcore. Like, I don't consume everything Star Wars related. I don't sit around with my friends and argue about Star Wars, but I watch every movie over and over and over again. Yeah, I watch every movie over and over and over again. When I was a kid, I used to remember I had a VHS tape that you could like turn it so it was like extended play, and it literally had all 3 movies on it, and I would just watch that tape like every single day. Like, when I came home, I would just put it on wherever it was. When it got to the end, I would just rewind it and start it again. So I'll probably watch the original trilogy several hundred times, if not, close to 500. I mean, it was like the only movie I really watched. Like, I just watched all 3 of those over and over again. Right?
Yeah, my 12th birthday party, when was that? 1985. So the Empire had been out for a while, but VHS had just come out pretty much right before then, at least to be somewhat cheap. And that was the theme of my party, in 1985 was Empire Strikes Back.
Just a bunch of kids sitting around watching Star Wars. That sounds good.
It's in a lot of our DNA, right? It's in most of our people's ages in their DNA. The thing is, though, the backlash I've seen, we can get into the numbers and all that later, but I think a lot of it's artificial. I think there's some data out there that suggests that some of these sites have been a little bit hacked. And I also would say that the most vocal people against this film, I guess you could say, are those hardcore Star Wars fans. And they're taking the time to let their opinion known to everyone. While I'd say your casual fan or even Star Wars fan who loved it, they're not taking the same amount of time to really be as vociferous out there on the internet. So I think it's a little bit of an echo chamber, and maybe it's a little bit bigger than it really is. But that being said, I get it. Everybody has the right to their own opinion. But when people start writing up change.org petitions to take it down from canon and to try and ask Disney to redo episode 8, you just kind of start shaking your head. And there's people, I went down the rabbit hole. I went down, and read all the comments, all the people who are supporting it, 49,000 signatures as of now. Pretty damn funny quotes, pretty damn funny stuff that people are writing in
I
there.
got to actually look at that because it's pretty like, so the first kind of like indication.
Some of them I know some of them are joking, they're trolls. I get it, but some
people are jumping on the troll train right now a little bit too. But
that's all it is.
So I think that, but I also think there's a lot of hardcore fans who completely love the crap out of it. I would consider myself, like I said, like medium core, I guess you could say.
I put myself.
And I'm kind of at the stage now where I want to see it like a bunch more times, but the second time I saw it was completely different. I loved almost everything that happened this time. It was kind of crazy how from the first time to the second time, it was like the first time there was things that didn't play well to me, and I was, and I wasn't sure about, and then the second time, kind of watching them from a different perspective, kind of just going and just be like, you know what, I'm just gonna take it in as is. I'm not going to try to put it in my Star Wars box and have it be what I think Star Wars is supposed to be. I'm just going to take in whatever this movie's offering me. And I can't believe how much worked so well for me the second time. But so the first indication I had that people were so polarized on it, so I saw Rotten Tomatoes 92% critical rating, and then audience rating was 53%. So literally like split in half with people who say they loved it and then didn't love it. So okay, so let's talk about. So I want to talk about some of the things that when I first saw it, and these are the things everyone's kind of talking about, are the problems that they had. So first problem, obviously, is Luke gets his lightsaber back from Rey, and looks at it for a second, throws it over his shoulder, right? And not just like a casual, like he threw it like hard, like it went behind him quite a ways, almost like fell off the cliff. And a lot of people hate this. Because I think to a lot of people it's only being played up for laughs. At least that's probably how it comes across to them. Is it's only being played up for laughs. What was your thought when that happened? Like, did you like that or did you hate that?
No, at first I was confused. I mean, I laughed at it.
It is confusing. It's like, whoa, what?
I mean, come on. That's the end of The Force Awakens, right?
Yeah.
It's this big dramatic reveal. Here he is standing out on the cliff. Rey's handing him a lightsaber. Boom.
It's literally like a helicopter circling the island getting that shot. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, God, we got to wait 2 more years to find out what he's going to do with that lightsaber. And to open up the movie with him just chucking it, I thought was fantastic. It caught me off guard, and I think that was the point of it.
Yeah.
Now, as to how serious he was about it, I didn't know. Yeah, it was a moment of levity, but I think it was also kind of Ryan Johnson just kind of slapping us in the face, going, you waited 2 years for that. Look what he did. But
I think that's definitely there. Yeah, for sure.
I think you have to see how Luke develops as a character and the struggle that he was dealing with for all those years in isolation, and how he wanted to distance himself from the Jedi, and he wanted the Jedi Order to end, because all it's done is cause pain and anguish. Every time the Jedis rise, then boom, something bad happens. Obviously, with Ben Solo there, it took a turn for the worse. So I think, in hindsight, you got to look at that scene as him just saying, "Oh, fuck this shit, I'm out of here. I'm not doing Jedi crap anymore."
Yeah.
And I think that's what it was. And so
I think you're right.
Just a call for humor, like, "Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy was so successful, maybe we should do the same thing." I don't think so. I think it was, a mix of a little bit of comedy, but it was also a way to look back on it, a calling card, that he was just chucking the lightsaber because he doesn't want to deal with this anymore. He wanted her to leave the damn planet and leave him alone. So he was, get off my lawn, get off my planet, Yeah.
So he also, at this point, you got to understand, he doesn't know. I think one of the reasons why it might be a little bit, the tone is a little weird, is he does it without even like asking who she is at this point, or trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Like, why did somebody I don't know just show up on my deserted island and hand me my old lightsaber, right? Or my father's old lightsaber? Like, that's weird, right? I mean, so I think a lot of people were like, why didn't he at least even question it or wonder what the hell's going on? But I think you're right. Like, it does a couple things. At one, it's like, okay, everybody, we're not going to do the thing that you think we're going to do. That's not what this episode's going to be at all. it's also like you said, it's the writer and director like saying, this is my film. I know J.J. Abrams made the first one, but now I'm making this one, and I'm not doing everything just based on what happened in the previous one. So I heard a couple of people talk about that, there were like 4 or 5 like "fuck you, JJ" moments, essentially, like it's my turn now, kind of things. But
yeah, he's
so
like,
when
I'm
I
not
saw it
going
the
to
second
reprint
time,
Empire either.
yeah,
right?
yeah. But when I saw it the second time, like you said, I knew the story arc of Luke at this point. So the first time I saw it and he did that, it seemed really weird tonally to me. Second time, I knew the arc of Luke, which is that he basically wants the Jedi Order to end. It doesn't make sense to him anymore. A lot of shit has happened since the end of Return of the Jedi, when he was just the sickest Jedi Knight in the galaxy. So much has happened, so many terrible things, and he's just like, no, we were wrong. Like, all of that was wrong. Everything that we thought, all of the stuff was just, it was just hokey religion, right? And he really believes, I think, that he's discovered the better way, which is let it all die out, let it all fade away, and the galaxy's going to be fine. And the scene where he's kind of giving that lesson to Rey, I think, really kind of strikes that tone. And once you see that scene, the second time I saw the lightsaber, I was like, oh, it makes a lot more sense now. It's not just a comedic moment. It's literally like, no, what the shit? No, I don't want this. Like, why is this back in my life, kind of thing, right? So, I mean, they could have played it up differently and maybe it worked better. But that's, again,
it could have been a more serious scene, but that's the director's kind of MO. And I get it. I understand why some hardcore fans, it was maybe a little bit more comedic than the original trilogy. The original trilogy had plenty of humor, though. That's the thing. It's not like it was rid of humor. It had plenty of humor. So maybe this was touched up a little bit, but I don't think it was ridiculous on the humor side.
No, I don't think so either. A lot of what I've heard from people about the humor stuff, I just don't really get, because, Star Wars has always had a ton of humor. I mean, C-3PO's like whole purpose in the show or in the movies is just to be there for comedic relief, and he's in every single Star Wars movie ever made. So, so I mean, okay, the humor. Like, I think the other thing that people mentioned was that they didn't like the humor happening when a scene was serious. And I don't think people are wrong about this. I think there's definitely an argument to be made that when a scene is really serious, you might want to stick with that seriousness for just a little bit, right? But then, like, the stuff, like, people are complaining about, like, Rey, he says reach out, and she reaches out, and then he, like, tickles her with the leaf, and you feel it's the Force. Do you feel it? She's like, oh, I feel it. Like, I thought, I mean, that's not a super serious moment. That's not like someone's dying right now or something like that. That's, and to me, like, fit her character, because she is, like, I have a theory that I've seen other people echo too about why she's so powerful. I think one of the reasons is she's a child. She's like a wondering, she's
innocent.
Kind of,
it's they already talked about her raw strength.
She's like a daydreamer, right?
That's what Snoke sees in her and others. So absolutely, it's an uncontained, untapped strength, which he's just starting to discover. And I think, Luke obviously knows it, because he says he's never seen power like this, but only once. He's trying to reject the Jedi Order, and he's just basically making fun of the whole stuff in the beginning of the movie. So I think that all fits in, again, as you look back at the story as a whole arc, not just that individual scene. So I think it works.
Yeah. And I think there are people who are like, just maybe they have kind of nostalgia glasses on when they think of the old movies, and so to them, like, they're perfect. Like, I watched a bunch of the original trilogy this morning. I got up and I just was like, I just want to watch these. I Star Wars on the brain, right? So I literally went through all 3 of them while I was kind of like working on stuff in the morning. There is tons of stuff you could poke holes in going on in the original trilogy. Like, there's just so many moments where you're like, wait, what? How does that work? And the thing is that as a kid, I just didn't do that, right? And watching these movies as an adult, I think people have a tendency to start doing that. And I think you're robbing yourself a little bit of an enjoyable experience if you do that. Like, that's kind of what I did the first time I saw it. And then the second time, I just was kind of like a child again, just watching Star Wars, right? And there was a bunch of awesome shit in this Star Wars movie. And I also, I think I texted you about this, that as I was watching it, there was a kid next, like a family with a kid who was maybe about 8 years old or something. And things like when BB-8 was in the AT or whatever, and they're all capturing everything. All of a sudden, he starts blasting everybody. Like the little kid was like, "Yeah!" Like he was so excited about that. And I'm like, I remember moments like that when I was a kid. Like the Millennium Falcon shows up, and stuff, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, yes!"
I went to the movie with my kids. We saw it on the preview night, Thursday night, before it opened. And so I was committed to seeing it. We saw it, or we bought tickets 2 months in advance or whatever. So it was me, my wife, and my 2 kids. So I got a 12 and a just about to turn 8-year-old. And so my son, who was about to turn 8, was about the same age when I saw Empire. So there's a little bit of a parallel there, because this is the second of the third trilogy. And I saw that second movie of the first trilogy about the same age. And to look over and see his face during that BB-8 scene, but also other scenes, it was incredible. And in fact, at the end of the movie, it was the longest Star Wars movie, by the way, at 2.5 hours. The credits started rolling, and the first things out of his mouth, he said, "That's it?" That felt like an hour.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was too long, to be honest. Like, because I even though there's like some debatable scenes, like you probably could have cut some stuff. It never felt like it was like dragging to me. So.
Yeah, I mean, so you have some great comments in your chat room, by the way, and obviously I don't agree with all of them, but they're insightful and everybody has their opinion. But I think, and I texted you this, when Star Wars came out, George Lucas even said this, it was made for kids, but adults loved it too, and it really bored itself into the minds of us kids at the time. Now we are 40-something adults, and I think there's a certain portion of the Star Wars fan base that, I'm not trying to offend them. I'm not. I understand it from their point of view, because it's precious to them. Yeah. They want their story to be told right. They want it to feel like they were when they were younger. They want this story to go the way they want. I get it. And not everybody's going to have the same path in which they are going to have or want the story told. Everyone's going to deviate a little bit. But the reality is that I know everyone accuses Disney of a cash grab. Okay, look, yeah, they're making money. Indeed. But I don't think that's what Rian Johnson and others are thinking about. They're still trying to make a quality movie. They're also trying to make it for kids. You got to remember that. It's made for families. It's made for everyone. And there are going to be certain elements that maybe appeal to the kids more than the adults. Not everything is going to be dark and dreary and exactly the way you want it. Yeah. Maybe, and to some extent you say, oh, well, Luke dying, that's not really good for the kids and all that. Well, look at the original trilogy. Death happened. Yeah,
there's a lot of dark stuff in there too.
So whatever. I don't like it when people use that excuse. So my point is that remember that this movie is also made for kids, and try to put yourself in the seat of that 7 or 8-year-old that is watching that movie. And they're not going to get all the intricacies, and they're not going to have the same desires as a hardcore Star Wars fan. And that's part or a good portion of the audience they're trying to curtail to. And if they did that in the first trilogy, why are they going to deviate from that in the third trilogy? That's what doesn't make sense to me.
Well, there's a lot of kids who are confused as hell when you say that the prequels are terrible, right? Because or sorry, kids when it came out. Yeah. Like people who were kids when it came out, who are like, they love Jar Jar and they love all, and to them there was no political whatever about any of that. Like it was just, they thought it was awesome, right? They just, to them it's like sweet Star Wars movies, right?
Yeah.
So it's yeah, I mean, it's just also, we have to understand like our perspective on it is a lot different than a kid seeing all this stuff for the first time.
Okay, so I went through a lot of people's comments on the internet, and this is not an exhaustive list, but this is just kind of a bulleted list, a cliff notes, if you will, of some of the issues that people had. And I had some issues with these too. It's not that I didn't, but some people were so upset about some of these individual or combination of these items that this is why they thought the movie was crap. And to the audience out there, I'm not saying this is what you thought was bad. This is not why you thought it was a bad movie. I get it. Everyone has their own reasons, and we may not cover them. But in a list of just kind of bullets here, bad jokes, new force powers, death of Luke and how it didn't, quote, mean anything. Luke didn't know about Han until he asked about him. Yoda with his force ghost powers. Princess Leia's space escape.
All right, well, let's go down these a little bit, because I think I could actually explain a bunch of this stuff. So New
Kylo
force
nipples,
powers.
green milk, and casino scene. I got more, but that's a pretty good list.
Let's actually go through these because these are good. I want to address some of these.
Yeah.
All right, go start again from the top. What'd you got?
All right, bad jokes we kind of covered.
Yeah, we covered that.
Okay, new force powers.
Okay, yeah, okay. New force powers. Okay. First of all, the force is like when I'm watching a movie about space wizards, I don't decide that that they have to adhere to the laws of physics and stuff and like, oh, this is what they could do at this point. That means that there's no other things that anybody can figure out how to do with the force. Right. And there's actually a lot of, if you go like deeper into some of the outside stuff, like some of the books and the comics and the video games and things like that, there's been force powers being added in forever. Like there's constantly new stuff being added. One of the big things that one of the big theories people had was that Snoke was actually going to be Darth Plagueis, who had figured out, and they did talk about this. I mean, the original trilogy kept kind of adding on a little bit too, but when you go back to the prequels, that's when you find out about who Darth Plagueis is. He says, oh, he's discovered a way to use the Force to revive people. You can literally resurrect the dead. All right, and this is one of the main reasons Anakin wants to go to the dark side, is because he wants to learn how to do that so he can always save Padme, right? So, I mean, adding Force powers has been going on forever. And then I also, there's a big thing going on here that in the prequels and when the Jedi were like actually at their height of their power, like they're pretty prominent, you would get discovered as a child who was Force sensitive, and you would go and you would learn and you would study with a master at a temple, right? And essentially the Force in that scenario is being taught like science. It's being taught like, you know, all right, kids, take out your lightsabers. We're going to learn some flippy shit now. You know, it's like, so in that environment, there's probably not going to be a lot of innovation, right? The kids are going to learn how to fight with lightsabers. They're going to learn how to move rocks. They're going to learn how to flip around. They're going to learn how to do all that kind of stuff, right? They're going to learn how to do the Jedi mind trick. Now, then instead, when you move to one of the strongest, like just locations where the Force exists, and you live by yourself for 30 years, you might start to get a little creative with the Force. Start figuring out how to do things like project yourself across the galaxy and things like that, right? So it's like, to me, it's just like mad scientists working with this power called the Force. And also, like Minnie's in the chat just says, in the Clone Wars, there's a ton of different Force power. There's projection.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the original trilogy, you know, a couple of the movies revealed new Force powers. You know, so I don't quite understand the argument of like the Force powers that we've seen in the first 6 movies. That's it. That's all that can happen. No, you got to expand yourself because, you know, you have Ben Kenobi saying that, you know, to Darth Vader, if you strike me down, I'll be more powerful than you've ever imagined. It's like, well, how can some dead guy be more powerful, right? Yeah. Well, that connects to the Yoda thing, I think. That also connects to them being able to speak. It connects to maybe even Episode 9. Who knows if we're going to see Space Ghost Luke? I mean, we could, right?
Oh, I mean, well, okay. I don't want to say we definitely are because I was wrong about a lot of stuff here, right? So
yeah, exactly. I don't think JJ's going to go that far. But I don't have the quote in front of me, and I'm sorry, I'm not the super hardcore Star Wars fan, the mediocre Star Wars fan, but I recall Darth Vader talking about how the Force is more powerful than basically the Death Star blowing up a planet. So if he's talking about Force powers being more powerful than that, I think it really opens up the whole contextual universe of anything's possible if a particular Force user is able to explore and experiment and tap into these new powers. I mean, I don't see why that's an issue. I really don't. I'd say fooey to that.
And I think the Force Ghost stuff is also, you can also just say that if you are that strong with the Force, and essentially like what happens, if you think about Obi-Wan, Yoda, and now Luke, they all did the thing where they disappeared essentially into the Force. They become one with the Force, right? And that's kind of like when you become a Force Ghost. Do you think that then once you become a Force Ghost, like you stop learning and training as like some entity that still has, you know, like you could still think and learn and train, and like Yoda can now apparently call lightning down from the sky. So
I guess we've only seen the Force Ghosts at funerals.
They always just show up and hang out for a second.
X-wings and then helping to strike down the Jedi tree, right?
Yeah, that's true. But now they've learned other stuff.
What do they do in their downtime, right? Are they chilling out like in the villain pub?
I think they'll hang out and talk, you know? Yeah, they have like a poker game on Tuesdays and
I mean, yeah, you can say all you want. Yeah, maybe they're chilling and dealing with their new powers, going, hey, look what I can do. I can call lightning. Because one of the things is like, well, if Yoda could call lightning, why don't the goddamn Space Force ghosts just come down and help him fight in battles, right? If they can back to the physical world.
Sure.
And it's like, yeah, okay, fine, you can make that jump. But obviously, we're not going to see movies with armies of space Jedis or ghost Jedis. It's just not going to happen.
It's just dumb to want a thing to happen because you're like, that's what would happen. And I'm like, well, then there's no friggin' movie. So let's just like.
There's also no
noise
in space, but there's noise in these space movies.
Oh, dude, clearly in this movie, there's gravity in space. You can drop bombs slowly from a bomber hovering in space.
It's interesting. I would love
and you can lay on a grate and still be breathing just fine in said bomber.
Right.
And you know the best way? Do you know, Chad, the best way to detonate your bombs and release your payload? Do you know the best way? If you're in a high-tech bomber? The best way is a loose remote control that just bangs around the cockpit, not like a button or a lever on the dashboard.
No. It's got to be a remote control.
No, it's got to be a remote control.
Because we all know that your batteries never go out in a remote, and the wireless signal always works.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like it's just silly to complain and worry about things like this to me. Like
it's artistic license. Come on, let it go.
In A New Hope,
all right.
They don't shoot the droids in the escape pod because there's no life forms. He literally is like targeting the escape pod. He's like, nope, just let it go. No life forms. It's like, okay, we don't even have all 6 movies after that if they just shoot the damn pod. That's literally it. It's over. Like all of it's over.
That's how it should have ended. Yeah, that's one of those.
And the Empire wins. So I don't know. To me, it's just dumb to worry about shit like this.
It's artistic license, and you could hide behind the fact that they have artificial gravity, so there's gravity inside the ship at that moment, and then you know how in space if you push something, it will move.
It just keeps going. Sure.
It just keeps going. So if you're going to suspend disbelief about artificial gravity already occurring in space as a future development, or actually this is a long, long time ago, but another technology, well then the bombs are falling through that gravity field and then continue with their momentum towards their target. That's all I'm going to say about that.
There you go. Hey, here's the other thing, though. If you're going to suspend reality, first let's start with space wizards, and then it's like I'm watching a movie about literal space wizards. I feel like it's dumb to get bogged down and it wouldn't work that way. Like it's not Star Trek, right? Star Trek, it's okay.
Thing. Lightsabers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they've calculated, and I can't remember how many megawatts, but it's a ridiculous number of megawatts that would be required to cut through basically any material in a plasma beam, right?
Yeah.
So if this was theoretically possible or hypothetically possible, here's the issue with it. And this is the reason I'm going down this rabbit hole is because I see the nitpicking in all of the movies, but especially this one about some of these things like, the force thing and the bombs and the no gravity and the da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, if you put something of that temperature into a human body, do you know what would happen?
No,
Have you ever thrown think about throwing a bottle of water into a pot
I've seen it in Star Wars. Metal. They disappear, right?
That's true. Ben Kenobi just said, I'm out of here, right? Just like Luke did. But no. What happens is that the water in the cells immediately sublimate. They turn from, solids too. Solid to gas is sublimation. But they immediately evaporate. They go from liquid to gas, but very rapidly, explosively. So if lightsabers were real and you poked Han Solo like Kylo Ren did, he would literally blow up. And Kylo Ren would be covered in Han Solo guts.
Yeah.
Okay. So look, it's a freaking movie. Don't get bogged down in the little details like that, because if you're going to talk about, force ghosts and bombs not having gravity and how are they getting down, well, then you got to talk about sound and space. You got to talk about lightsabers exploding people. You got to talk about all those things. So you just eliminate those things from your mind.
Yeah.
Just don't think
about it.
The best
thing to do is just don't do it. Yeah.
It's okay.
Plenty of movies ask us to do that, to just suspend our belief, and it's totally fine for me. Like
they know
have no
it's
problem
not
doing
real. They know they could technically smooth it over for all the people who want it right, but it's
weird to me because that seems like a Star Trek thing to do. Like it seems like a Trekkie thing to do, is to like learn like all the languages and figure out all the technology and all that kind of stuff. Like that seems like something very Trekkie. And it's like Star Wars people were always kind of more just like, we believe, like, because it's the movie's more about the characters, right? Not necessarily about the science and technology. So
no, sorry, Curtis, I'm sorry, I mispronounced Curtis Larac. He says that if any human got even close to a lightsaber, they would instantaneously burn. That's right. They said something like within 10 feet,
Yeah,
clothes
you
would
wouldn't even
ignite,
be near
skin would ignite.
a
So you
source
couldn't
that
even
high.
ignite a lightsaber because your arms would light on fire.
But
Anyway,
no, you can like hold it directly next to your face. I mean, that's fine as long as it doesn't actually touch you. All right,
That's
so
right.
let's go.
For a cool
Let's go
picture.
down that list a couple more. What else you got on
All
there?
right. Yeah, no particular order. Death of Luke and how it, quote, didn't mean anything.
Ah, yes. So the death of Luke meant a crap ton.
Yeah.
I actually had a guy tweet at me today that, because I was tweeting like some stuff, just kind of like trying to say, hey, the film's fine. Like a lot of people are, like, I get it if you just didn't like it, if you didn't enjoy it. But the problems that I'm hearing on these types of arguments where I'm just like, this is just nitpicky bullshit. The death of Luke absolutely meant a lot, like obviously. So first of all, he's essentially like redeemed himself, right? Because he one of the major themes of this movie is just failure, right? It's just the entire thing. Every single character in this movie fails at what they are attempting to do. Every single one. I mean, if you really think about it, like all the way to Kylo and Hux and all the good guys and all the bad guys all friggin' fail, right? Snoke fails. He doesn't know what's about to happen to him, and he ends up dying. So essentially, like Luke was a failure, right? And this has become his legacy. Is like all the shit I did. The legendary Luke Skywalker. Ultimately, I was a failure. Ultimately, I ended up creating essentially our next Darth Vader. Even after redeeming the first one, that wasn't enough. I ended up then going on to fail because I was too cocky, too much hubris, I think is the word they use, right? And so ultimately ended up failing. And then this is him. This is like the moment of redemption. Like he does the most badass thing ever to save the super small amount of resistance fighters that they have left, allows them to escape to allow the resistance to continue, and does that all on his own, and ends up dying because of the effort, essentially. So it's essentially like the effort, and then I think it's coming to grips with his own failure and his own it's like kind of he found peace in that moment where like, all right, well, I did one last good act. I didn't have to shut myself out completely. I became one with the Force. And in that moment, actually just gives up. It's kind of like how Yoda died. Yoda was just like, all right, I'm done. I've done everything I can do. I trained Luke. That was kind of my last act, right?
Yeah, and I think it was earlier. God, guys, I've only seen the movie once, so please don't be mad at me. But what scene was it when I believe it was it Snoke that was talking about the communication between Kylo and Rey and how he set that all up.
Yeah, he facilitated.
There's no way Rey could have done that by herself because he said it, quote, would have torn her apart.
Well, no, Kylo actually says when they first commune. I didn't notice this the first time. When they first actually start talking, Kylo Ren actually says, "How are you doing this? Like you can't be doing this. It would kill you." And so essentially, like, yeah, it's the effort to do it and the amount of power that it actually takes as a Jedi is so great that it would actually. Like Kylo knows it would kill you.
And they kind of set that up as a vision into the future there, because a lot of people had a problem with him dying. Like, why did he have to die? Because he projected himself out there, and it's like, well, he sacrificed himself in order for the rebellion to survive. That's it. Like
that's a huge meaning. That's a huge amount of meaning. Yeah,
he's literally a martyr. Okay. Yeah. He doesn't do that. The rebellion gets blown up. That's it. The end of that's it. Empire wins.
He literally saved every single remaining resistance fighter, which they were like almost all gone at that point. So
I'll admit, and this is one of the things, you've seen it twice, and I definitely want to see it a second time. And it took me a couple of days to absorb it and to really reflect upon some of the scenes. And the second time I see it, I'm sure it's going to hit me in a different way. But when Luke kind of came out of the Force projection, and he was sitting there and climbing back up on the rock, I kind of wasn't thinking about him dying. I was just like,
yeah, I thought it was just such an amount of effort. Yeah.
He's going to be cool. He's just going to go milk some birds and he'll be fine. Yeah. Right. And then he sits up on the rock and then just disappears. And it was like, wait, what? And I admit, I love Luke Skywalker. He's from my childhood. I think that's why it hits a lot of fans to the core, because it's an emotional gut punch.
Well, they want him
And
to go down in some blaze of glory or whatever, and it's like,
yeah, a badass
not,
lightsaber fight or something.
but that's
right.
not like the preferred method of a Jedi to go out. If you think about it, like every single time like one of these really badass Jedis has gone out, your Obi-Wans and your Yodas and stuff, like it's always kind of been on their own terms. In the original trilogy, we had tons of them. Tons of these moments, but in the prequels, we had tons of Jedis going out like bitches. If you want to talk about Jedis going out like bitches, let's talk about the prequels, because they just got slaughtered left and right.
Jedis were physically getting killed, but like Obi-Wan Kenobi, he disappeared right before he was struck. Yoda, Luke, right, from the amount of energy it took to do that. So I think it speaks to the connection to those other two characters, the power of the Force, and the fact that he was a martyr. So even though to me, for 10 minutes, I was like, damn it, why did they do that? I was actually kind of angry because I didn't want to see him die. I thought for sure he was going to be in episode 9. No, okay, he still could be, but I thought for sure the live version of Luke Skywalker was going to be in episode 9, especially because Han's dead. And, Carrie Fisher unfortunately passed away because she originally had a big part, apparently, in episode 9, and they've had to rewrite it.
It was kind of like this. So 8 or 7 was kind of like Han's movie. 8 was like Luke's movie. And 9 was going to be like Leia's movie, right? And this is, I think this is kind of the plan, right?
So when Carrie Fisher died, I'm sure they have the script already. They'd already filmed it, obviously. So Luke dying, and they obviously didn't want to rewrite it at that point.
Yeah.
To carry in one of the original trilogy actors into the next film. So if he doesn't come back as a Force ghost, it does set up the third movie to be the new generation, the Rey and the Finn and the Poe and all those guys.
It's one of the things Kylo talks about the entire film is let the past die. So essentially this would be the film where the past has died, right? So
yep. And now all the new kids, the new Force users, which they don't have to be Skywalkers, by the way, can come into the fold. So I think it's a turning of the page. It's, look, we've heard about the Darth Vader and the original trilogy actors for 8 movies now. It's gonna happen. They're gonna have to turn the page at some point, and this is when they're doing it. So for people who are upset about that, which I know is not necessarily everyone who's upset at the movie, that's just kind of part of the formula. There's got to be a new generation.
Yep. So I think
By the way, what are you drinking tonight? I'm drinking a little in honor of Christmas, Santa's butt.
Santa's butt, huh? I have a nice bourbon here and a Lone Star. To chase it every now and then, yeah.
Nice. All right, cheers, sir.
But cheers. So, okay, I want to talk about something that I think I see a lot of people talk about, which is the casino section of the film. Yeah. Right?
That was definitely something I did not care for.
Now, the first time I saw it, I actually really didn't like it. It felt like it was much longer to me the first time than when I saw it the second time. And it's funny to me that it's funny to me that on the first viewing it felt really long, because the second time I saw it actually was not very long at all, and it did actually serve a pretty big purpose as far as driving the plot forward. So I think a lot of people's problem was they have to go on this mission, and then they go to this other planet, to this casino, to find the master code breaker, and then they don't even find him, and then they come back, and then they don't even crack the code. So it was just stupid. Nothing happened. And my argument against that is lots and lots of things actually happened because of these events, right?
Yeah.
So and that's the point isn't that they actually cracked the code. The point is that they didn't crack the code, and that set in motion a whole bunch of shit, right? So first of all, they weren't able to get to the original master code breaker because they're idiots. And they fucked up. And this is actually part of, I think, Finn's growth as a character, because a lot of people are saying Finn had no arc. And I think Finn's arc is that he's a fuck up and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing, and he's just kind of bumbling through
I can do anything.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
Last movie he was trying to run away. This movie he's way too cocky.
Well, this movie, he's trying his hardest, but he just bumbles through everything. And
he did try to escape in the beginning of the movie, but he wasn't love interest.
But even there, he wasn't trying to escape. He was just trying to find Rey and save her, right? So even there, he had motivation, right?
He had motivation.
And the motivation made sense to his character. So here he's so now all of a sudden he's, and also this is him finding himself not trying to run away because Rose, the new character here, who she has all the motivation in the world, her sister gave her life up, who apparently is the closest person to her because they both share the medallions. Sister gave her life up to bomb this juggernaut and do one last heroic act for the resistance, and so she has all the motivation in the world to like, and so she's kind of like she's like Finn's Bagger Vance or something. Like she's like her role here is just to like get Finn and just be like, stop being a fuck up. Like come on, we gotta do this thing. Because even at the end, and I saw a lot of people complain about this, that she saves him at the end. He was not going to kill that battering ram laser. Like he wasn't.
Not that little
he was
tin can.
He was still like 100 yards away from it. His fucking spaceship thing is falling apart. He's not even close. It was not gonna work. He was just gonna die, and they were still gonna have like if you really watch that scene again, it's like no, this wasn't gonna work. She saved him because she knew it wasn't gonna work.
And the other thing I thought was was clever about it is that they called it a miniaturized Death Star, right?
It was Death Star tech. Death Star. It was like one of those lasers, yeah.
So, they already labeled it a mini Death Star, and here he is trying to fly right into the center, just like like every other movie, right? Blow up the Death Star, throw it in the center. And so you're thinking, and I actually was thinking at the time, oh God, I don't care if he dies or not. I just don't want to see this again, right?
Yeah.
Like something different happened, and it did. Rose comes out of nowhere, knocks him out. They still blast the door, so that there's little scenes like that which I thought were original. I thought they were, hey, look, you thought we were going to blow up the mini Death Star, but we didn't. We're doing something else.
And also, it maintains the theme of failure again. Like this is another situation where he failed at like everything he did. And then finally, like, okay, it's because you're kind of just trying to do it your own way. And it's the same thing with Poe. Like, Poe is failing at everything he's doing because he's trying to do it his own way. And everyone needs to kind of just let go and just do it the way that it should be done. It's like by letting the Force actually kind of be... It's like one of those things where it's like everyone who fights against the Force, it doesn't work for you. And the things don't go your way. And, that was Luke's problem forever. It's one of the reasons why Rey... everything seems to work for her. Everyone complains about how powerful Rey is. I'm like, no, everything works for her because she's like the only character in the movie who just kind of like lets it happen and believes that it could happen. The only thing that's holding her back is that she just constantly wants to find her fucking parents. And, if she could just let go of that, she'd be fine. But anyway, so, okay, back to the casino. The other really important thing that happens here, though, is that about finding the thief guy who's a slicer who ends up helping them, like whatever. I mean, that kind of sets into motion that they are killing the resistance in their escape pods, right? That's really all that kind of does, and it just introduces Benicio del Toro, who's Matt has an interesting character with he's an actor, he puts ticks in and stuff, but whatever. The other thing that happens here, though,
I didn't like that.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't my favorite character, but he's fine. He didn't like hurt the film in any way to me.
No, I just didn't like the way he played the role,
he didn't need to, but okay, but there was one explanation for it, is that he's a slicer, codebreaker guy. He's constantly getting electrocuted, so now he's got weird ticks because he's...
Well, I guess you could say that, yeah.
So,
seemed like a nice guy, ended up being a dick at the end.
Well, here's the thing. He wasn't...
but he may resurface in episode 9, so...
Yeah.
See.
But he wasn't...
Possible.
He was going to do the thing with them. Like, he didn't... It was just once they got caught. He was like... I mean, that's what his character would do. He would have done the thing if he was going to get paid by the resistance, but instead they got caught, so then he's like, well, now I got to figure out another way to get paid, and that's just what he does. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he's a dick, but he was also willing to, like, totally do... He went into a friggin' Star Destroyer to, like, help them do something, so he was willing to. But anyway, but what also sets up is if you...
mean Benicio del Lando, I like it.
If you watch at the end of the movie, when they go back to that planet, I can't even remember the name of it. It's like Ado something, or I can't.
That's all right, whatever it is.
But it doesn't matter. But anyway, they go back to it, and you see the kids, and the one kid literally has that final battle. Crate is I thought Crate was the name of the planet that the Alliance went to, right? Or the Resistance went to. Yeah, I'm talking about the planet. Yeah, the casino planet. Anyway. So they go to so when they cut back to him, the little kid, he's literally got like a little Luke Skywalker, and he's just telling the other kids the story of Luke Skywalker standing in front of all of those walkers and getting shot at and then still being there, right? Like it's if you see the toys, it's the little Death Star, mini Death Star tech and all the walkers and then a little like fake Luke Skywalker, and he's telling that story. And so the idea is that because of the fact that they went there and they kind of came across these kids, this is how the legends spread. This is how the next generation of fighters kind of grow up wanting to join the resistance, wanting to, join the rebellion, wanting to, fight the Empire, is they hear about these tales, right? And they run into these people along the way, and sometimes, and it kind of spreads that seed. And that was kind of the seed of hope they were talking about at the end. So it's an easily missable detail, but it's, in the end, that whole section actually did have pretty big purpose. And I'm sure they could have found another way to do it. It's just, I don't know. I think a lot of people are missing some of the subtleties in this movie because it's a very dense movie with lots and lots of stuff going on. So
no, it's real dense. It's real dense.
And that's another thing you could debate whether they should have made it such a dense movie. But I think it's one of those. To me, that makes it a movie I can watch a lot of time. So I'm kind of excited about that. All right, what else you got? Let's go down the list again.
All right, I got one more thing I could talk about, and then I got to hit the hay. My kids, I got to put them to bed, unfortunately.
No worries,
Parenting 101. Let's see. Okay, how about this? We already talked about Leia's space escape.
Oh. Well, yeah, this is essentially under new Force powers to me.
Yeah, under new Force powers.
And I think one of the problems people thought was that Leia is not a Jedi, but the thing is about that is that there was actually a scene of dialogue where Yoda was essentially, and it might also just be in the books, but Yoda essentially thinks that Leia is the one they should have trained. She might actually be the more powerful of the two. So,
no, I mean, we've all known she's always had Force powers, and so this is just kind of extending that to the point where she was literally dying.
Yeah,
and a lot of people had a problem with what she did. I get it, but at the same time, they didn't need to go to that extreme. I understand, but they were trying to show that under extreme duress, her Force powers took over and she was able to save herself. So that's okay in my book. It really is. I thought she was dead. Of course, Admiral Akbar is dead. That's kind of
he is dead because he's not. He doesn't have the Force powers of
he's out there. He's a frozen. It's a trap in space now.
People really love Admiral Akbar. When you think about it, he's literally said like 5 lines ever in Star Wars movies, and people are going crazy about how he got no respect.
One of those funny icons. I know. Yeah. I love it.
And he's funny looking. And he said it's a trap one time. Like.
Yeah. And the last thing I would say is we were talking about the tomato score, 92 on Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic 86, a lot of other let's see, I have it right here. 8.0 user vote rating on IMDb, 82% approval on Google. So even a lot of user sites have a very high percentage, but Rotten Tomatoes does not at like 52% or 54%. And of course, it's come out, and this is questionable if this is true or not. An alt-right group named Down with Disney's treatment of franchises and its fanboys took responsibility for it, saying that they hated it. They hated all the minorities in it. They hated the women in it.
I've heard this about some
men.
Some MRA groups that are like pissed because it's a feminist movie now or something.
Exactly. And so they put a lot of people out, and they had to put in, 5 or 6 bad reviews and then a couple of good reviews because they wanted to throw them off the scent, as you will. Rotten Tomatoes has come out and said, we've checked everything. Everything's legit. This didn't happen. Well, Cinema Score, they also poll people. They've been doing this since 1976. They poll people. It's a scientific poll independently after they come out of the theaters. And it's, they gave it an A. They do letter grades. So it's an A right now. And so my point is there's plenty of user sites where the numbers are very high, very close to the critic scores. There's really only Rotten Tomatoes. IMDb, I think, is pretty high too. And maybe 1 or 2 other sites where the scores are really low. I think you need to look at the entire ballpark. And even if Rotten Tomatoes is saying that we don't detect anything, they're also trying to protect their own IP. They may not want to necessarily reveal if their system can be gamed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
They're not trying to protect Star Wars. They're trying to protect their system. So I think you just have to take those things into account. I'm not saying which one is true or not, but I think I'm a scientist by trade. I look at the big picture. And if 9 out of 10 sites for not just critics, but users have it rated positively. A couple of the Rotten Tomato type sites, yeah, maybe it is gamed, or maybe it's just that that's a site that the most vociferous critics will go to. I don't know, but
it's the one more people know about, I think, really.
Yeah. So I think in reality, the movie's actually being received a lot better than what the media is portraying, because they're going to latch onto these kind of stories. So
I mean, it's making a ton of money, and that's like the one thing that a lot of, like, you really measure the movie's success or failure pretty much on that in the end.
Yeah.
All right, last thing I do want to talk about before we stop is one of the last like big gripes that I see about it, which is that Snoke just dies too easily. He dies about halfway through the movie. He only has 2 real scenes, and a lot of people are just really upset that this guy who is kind of billed to them as this, just incredibly powerful being could just die that easily. But again, I want to just point out this is kind of part of the first of all, this is just what happens. Like to the Sith. Sith always get killed by their apprentice. That's just what happens. But the other thing is that, like, it's kind of funny that they keep taking apprentices on, because they're like essentially a death sentence every time they do. But the other thing was that it's part of the theme, the overarching theme of the film, of failure and hubris. He was too cocky, too confident, thought he knew exactly what was going on in Kylo's head, and Kylo was essentially sitting there, like, he was right to a certain extent. He was right that he was moving his lightsaber and getting it ready, but he was getting the wrong lightsaber ready and stabbing
his mind
the
right.
wrong guy in half. Yeah. But the thing is, he's also, and I think a lot of people just, again, it's like putting the movie into a box, like not letting the story be told to you, trying to tell the story what it should be. There's the story they want Snoke as a badass, right? But the real story here is that Kylo Ren is the fucking badass. Yeah. And this was like a big moment for him to kind of just break away. This is letting the past die. This is him moving forward, taking control of his own thing. And the fact is, like, he really believes that maybe Rey is someone that he can bring to his side, and that fucking lightsaber battle was the dopest shit ever. And
I loved it. Yeah,
it was so good. But it was funny, like, to watch them fight at the same side. The first time I saw it, I was like, I was also maybe not happy about that. The second time, I understood it a little bit more. And so I encourage everybody, like, see it again, watch it with more of an open mind, and just kind of try to imagine what the motivations of these characters might actually be, instead of forcing the motivations you think they should have. Also, try to take it out of one thing, like we talk about when we cast Hearthstone games, is we call it caster vision. Like, I know what both players have in their hand, so I obviously know what the best play is. Right. But in real life, nobody knows what everybody else is thinking or doing at any given moment. They're making decisions based on the information they have. And sometimes that's incomplete information, so you got to understand those characters don't always have all the information. So they might do something that to you is dumb, but you know all the information as the audience member. So it's like, just kind of look at it from that perspective, and I'd be very curious to hear what people think about what they liked the second. Like, did the movie suck the same amount if you hated it the first time, or did you like some things you didn't like, or did you suddenly hate things? Like, I want to hear what people think about on their second viewing compared to the first, because it changed a lot of things for me. So
yeah, I'm gonna go see it a second time by myself. I definitely want to do that. That's
smart. Yeah, so go in there and just really kind of take it in. Also, I do recommend seeing this movie in 3D at least once. I usually don't like 3D, but this movie actually it was done really well, and it wasn't like distracting. So I hate a badly done 3D movie though. Oh my god, I hate it.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
I usually avoid it. So it's interesting that you saw it. Maybe I'll try it. So yeah, that's good.
All right, man. Well, thank you for coming on and talking Star Wars with me. I really wanted to get it out, and like everybody else has their show to do it, and I'm like, man, we don't have a show like this. We always talk about, a video game or a baseball team. So
no, this is cool. I'm glad that you invited me on, man. This is incredible. Thank you very much. I'm passionate about this stuff. It's cool to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, we should do stuff like this more often, man. It'd be cool, I think. But anyway, tell everybody where they can find your Twitters and anything you're doing on the internets.
Yeah, well, obviously, Willie mentioned at the top of the podcast, YouTube, that we do a podcast together called Torturecast. That's very few of you will even care about that. It's a podcast about the San Francisco Giants. I don't have any gear behind me whatsoever. Other than that, you can follow me on Twitter at ChadK21. I also have another Twitter account I do a lot of my gaming stuff off of. In fact, I'll log in to Twitch here in a little bit. It's Epic Diapers, so I'll say some highs to you guys in about 10 minutes. But that's about it, man. Thanks a lot, Willie. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, that's going to do it for this spoiler-filled discussion of the new Star Wars The Last Jedi movie. And thanks again for everybody for watching. See you later.
Bye.